Welcome to New Tracks Modeling. New Tracks provides unique mentoring opportunities to enhance your modeling skills by connecting with talented modelers and manufacturers from around the globe who generously share their knowledge and artistic expertise. Build your confidence, refine modeling techniques, and share your projects with a supportive community of fellow modelers, all while enjoying the world's most rewarding hobby. Join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and YouTube for our free live program. Missed a program? No problem. Individual show segments are uploaded to YouTube for convenient on-demand viewing. Be sure to connect with the New Tracks community by joining the New Tracks Facebook page, where you can interact with other modelers and see what they are modeling. Visit our website at www.newtracksmodeling.com, where you'll find information about upcoming events and the latest issue of our magazine, New Tracks Modeler. New Tracks Modeler features articles from builds on the show, exciting new products, and other great articles. And now, here is the host of New Tracks Modeling, Tom Farrell.
Good evening, and welcome to New Tracks Modeling, coming to you live on Zoom and YouTube as we do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're pleased you're joining us. Before we begin tonight's program, I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the incredible response we continue to receive for our New Tracks Modeler digital magazine. To date, the feedback has been extraordinary, 100% positive, and the momentum shows no sign of slowing down. Our third issue is in the works, and like last month, it's especially exciting that most of the content is written by first-time authors to New Tracks Modeling. Additionally, I'm proud to share that our subscriber base is growing fast, and we're just getting started. Whether you're a seasoned modeler, just starting, or enjoying the hobby and creativity, you're welcome here. This broadcast and our 5 platforms are a larger vision that Jim Kello, New Tracks mentor and master model railroader, started. We enjoy, for those that are first-time visitors to the show, we have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have the live show that you're participating in now, we have the New Tracks Modeler digital magazine, and of course we have our New Tracks Mentor Scholarship. All New Tracks platforms are free to participants, powered entirely by a team of volunteers dedicated to the model railroading community. Before we get tonight's train rolling, a big thanks to Brennan's Model Railroading for sponsoring this evening's program. We've got a video for him.
Tonight's New Tracks Modeling Meetup is sponsored by Brennan's Model Railroading. For over 25 years, Brennan's Model Railroading has been offering unique products focused on the O-scale market. Their flagship product, Brennan's Better Ballast, was an instant hit and continues to be the industry leader. The prototypical size and natural color blend of real crushed granite make it the choice for discerning modelers. Since then, Brennan's has developed a complementary line of natural ground cover materials. Brennan's also has craftsman kits that anyone can build. The complete photographically illustrated instructions assume you've never done this before, and explain in step-by-step detail how to create an outstanding model. The Frank Ellison Tribute series of kits are amazing additions to any layout. These kits take Frank Ellison's scratch-built iconic structures to a new level using modern methods and materials with Dennis Brennan's additional details and amazing instructions. See the complete line of products on the Brennan's Model Railroading website. Use the QR code to visit.
Now, like every week, I encourage everyone to support Brennan's Model Railroading. And at the moment, Brennan has a, guys all see that? There's a new kit that he's offering, Garfield Electric Substation. It's a new O-scale laser kit. It's being introduced now, it's shipping now. It lists for $159.95, it's O-scale. If you enter the code on his website, NEWTRX, on your order, you'll get a $20 discount. bringing that down to $139.95. And anyone that's ever built a laser cut kit from Brennan's Model Railroading knows that they are first-class kits, extremely detailed, and this kit is going to be the feature of a build along. I'll be building this kit probably in a couple weeks, and if you guys want to build along with me, purchase that kit at a discount, and I assure you it'll be a standout model on your layout. Okay, so next I'd like to go right to the program, show you what we have on queue for this evening. This is going to be an exciting show because we have our New Track Mentoring Scholarship Award winners. Hopefully we'll have all 4 of them. Now, we're only going to allocate 30 minutes to that portion of the show. We're not going to really take too many questions and answers. Our Bob and I are going to get a little overview of who these guys are and where they're going to school. And over the course of the rest of the month, once a week, we're going to interview one of the awardees, and you'll have an opportunity to ask them about, what scales they're modeling, what got them into model railroading, et cetera, et cetera. Next up, we have just basically a world-class modeler. Kevin Spady is just a phenomenal modeler. Him and my friend Sean Williams put together the ON30 Wandering Spruce Railroad. This is a world-class layout. Kevin did a nice presentation of it at the recent Harrisburg Narrow O event, and I asked him to put this on New Tracks. I think you're going to just be amazed at the quality of this layout. And if you're not familiar with Kevin's modeling, you're in for a real treat. And then we have 2 other presentations this evening. Jeff Jordan, a longtime presenter. He's going to do Mini-Recordable sound modules. This is a real find, applicable to all scales. And then another from our Master Modeler series, my friend Dan Rousseau, weathering wooden structures. So it's going to be an interesting show this evening, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. And before we roll into our first segment, I'd like to spotlight our New Tracks Modeling Scholarship Program.
The New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship is the only national scholarship for model railroaders from a volunteer nonprofit organization. For academic year 2025-26, we are awarding 3 $2,000 scholarships for model railroaders pursuing a STEAM degree. We hope to award a similar number of scholarships for the 2026-27 academic year. We believe it is critical to support the next generation of model railroaders. You can support the New Tracks Modeling Mentoring Scholarship by donating online using the Zephy platform or directly by check. All donations are tax deductible.
Now, just in case you didn't catch that, we have all 4 recipients on this evening, and I'd like to Bob Davidson is the chairman of the scholarship program. I'd like to turn it over to him, and let's introduce these 4 recipients, and we'll give them a
Absolutely. I'd like to just take a moment first just to thank everyone who has made tonight possible, starting the board of directors, Jim Kello, Phil Edholm, Tom Farrell, and Jeff Jordan, our volunteer committee, has been outstanding. Steve Sherrill and Henry Primus, Doc Lovelace, and oh darn, Jamie Bothwell. Um, just and then everyone who's helped out at the shows, Greg and Steve, and you know, just we've gotten so much support. And in 3 years, this was our third year of awarding scholarship. We've awarded $15,000 now in academic scholarships to young model railroaders, and that's incredible. Obviously, we also couldn't do it without our supporters, our financial supporters. Um, there's a lot of individuals who have given very generously, and we encourage you to continue to do so as we move ahead into the next year of the scholarship program. Tonight, we also have, and you hear this name a lot, but Dennis Brennan at Brennan Model Railroading has been a sponsor of the scholarship since the first year. And we are so thankful for your support. He's been a brass sponsor now for 3 years running. And it's just great what all of these companies are doing for us. This past year, we also started a program where we will insert, or these companies will insert a flyer about the scholarship into their kits. And that has made a world of difference. So thanks to everyone, to our sponsors, to our individual donors. And Dennis, I don't know if you want to just say a quick word about what this scholarship means to you as a business owner and a business person in the model railroading field. You got to unmute yourself.
Okay, there we are. The only thing I'd like to say is it's not as much about my business as it is about getting young people interested and giving them some incentive. And so I'm trying to give back. And so this hobby has been incredibly rich for me, and I'm sure for all of us who are actively involved. And I'm just hoping that this scholarship program will encourage other people and help them in their endeavors. So thanks for letting me do this. So,
well, thank you, Dennis. We appreciate it so much. So without further ado, we'd like to introduce, I don't know if we can spotlight all of them, but I know they're all here. Brock Durham, Dean Dice, Mateo Cuo, and Aidan Kinney are this year's recipients. Each of these four young men will be receiving a $2,000 scholarship to aid in their academic pursuit. So congratulations, gentlemen. This was, we are so happy to have you part of the New Tracks family. Why don't I start with Brock? Brock, you were a recipient last year, and you are still at, you're going to be a senior at the Citadel?
Unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself, guys. If you could all just unmute yourself.
Bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom.
Brock, you need to unmute yourself. There you go. Is it?
Now?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
There you go. So why don't you, Brock, why don't you kick this off by saying, you know, since you received the scholarship last year, how did this help you in your academic pursuit at the Citadel?
Well, college is not cheap, and having any kind of scholarship really helps. I mean, college is expensive, but this year I've been able to actually get to work towards my degree for civil engineering, and I'm approaching the final little stretch, getting into senior year. So hopefully I'll be finished with that soon.
Congratulations. Also with us is Dean Dice from out in California. That's the other thing I want to point out. We are coast to coast with scholarship winners this year. East Coast, West Coast, Mountain. We're kind of covering the whole country. So Dean, welcome.
Thank you.
And you are attending Moore Park College in California.
That is correct.
And you'll be a sophomore this coming year?
That is correct. I'm a geography major at Moore Park College, going to my sophomore year, thinking about what Cal State I want to transfer into. And I'm really appreciative of the New Tracks group for the scholarship. It's a really big help, and I think it's a great program. And I think it's great. I really do.
Well, that's great. Well, we think it's great too. So we'll keep going down the line here. Mateo Cuo, come also from California. Welcome. Are you from California?
No.
I'm from Washington.
Oh, Washington. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm looking at the wrong cheat sheet. From
West-
Washington.
West
And
Coast.
you'll be
Yeah,
you're going to be studying in Montana.
yeah. Montana Technological University, studying mechanical engineering. I'm drawing a blank. It's not going yeah. I'm just happy to be here. I'm thankful that I got the scholarship. I was so happy and surprised that there was a scholarship for the passion that I have had since I was a wee young lad, and I'm excited that I'll be able to continue that through my college years.
Now, I don't want to give away everything, but you actually started modeling in 4-H, right?
Yep. I started modeling in a 4-H club. I think at the time that I joined, it was one of only one or two others on this side of the Mississippi.
Wow.
And I started with T-track models and modules and HO scale, and I may not have a layout now, but once I have a lot of plans for what I want to do.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Last but certainly not least is Aiden Kinney. Hello, Aiden.
Hello, everyone.
You are joining us from Colorado, correct?
I am.
Okay, I got that
Yes.
right. So why don't you tell us about where you're going to be heading next year and what you're going to be studying?
Yeah, of course. So I will be attending the University of Colorado Boulder for aerospace engineering. And again, I am just so grateful to all of you who even made this possible for me. It's such an honor to have won this scholarship, and I'm so thankful to be here.
That's great. Tom, did you want to ask our four young folks anything?
Well, it's just terrific that you guys are into model railroading. We always make the point that we need the youth in model railroading, otherwise the hobby goes away. Because unfortunately, although I plan on living forever, that's not necessarily the case. We have a little bit of time here. Maybe I could ask a couple basic questions. A lot of our generation, my generation, we got started in model railroading from Lionel trains. If we could go one at a time, maybe starting with you. How did you get into model railroading? What was the short answer to that? How did you get exposed to model railroading?
Well, we start with Brock.
Brock, yeah.
Well, I started off with the basic wooden Thomases. I always loved them when I was real little. And then eventually my grandparents, they bought me my first Lionel. So
Oh,
I've always been into Lionel myself and O scale.
yeah.
I experimented a little bit with HO and large, but I mean, my heart has always belonged to O scale.
And Aiden, how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I also had the wooden Thomas trains as a kid, but for me it was my grandfather who was also a model railroader. He modeled an HO scale, and so whenever we came to town, I would get to go see his model up on the shelf, and it was just so magical to me, so cool to see this. And so that kind of started the passion for me, and so I've gotten into mainly in scale. But I love everything narrow gauge, and because of my grandfather, I've just really gotten into this hobby. So I'm super grateful for that.
And that's great. And Dean?
I guess the wooden Thomas trains are a common theme here because that was my origin as well. And then by the time I was I kind of took a break through middle school, but at the time I was 12 years old is when that's the minimum age to join the local train club, the Santa Susana Model Train Club, which is where I'm at right now. Um, so joining the local train club, that really reignited it. And of course, how many 12-year-olds have a 25 by 50 foot layout in an original SP Depot to play with.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun. And then I get from there, it's, I have my shelf layout at home, and Southern California is lucky to have a number of really great clubs that allow youth membership. The La Mesa Club in San Diego gets a lot of my time nowadays. So
Terrific. And Mateo?
Well, I kind of got my start in the Wood and Thomas sets, but more of it I'd say is my grandfather had an old HO set, Bachman set from, I want to say the early 80s, late 80s. I don't know exactly when. I never really paid attention, but I started watching it go in a circle. And I mean, that's just, that hooked me. And then I started getting more into it. And I kind of dropped. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I kind of dropped out for a time, lost a little interest, but I stayed with modeling. And in more recent time, COVID time, one of my dad's friends had an N scale layout that he was working on and wasn't making too much progress on it. And so I went, well, how about if I come help you with it? He went, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. And so I got back into it and having a blast.
One thing that I think I was speaking to you, Mateo, some of the universities actually have model railroading clubs. I don't know if the schools you guys are going to do, but back east here, I know like Lehigh has one, MIT has one, Penn State has one. Obviously, you're going to have your hands full with engineering degrees. But put that aside, it's all about model railroading. You need to graduate, you need to play with trains. Come on. But seriously, though, if there's a club, of course, pursue it,
Yeah.
And
I know that all of you are always welcome here at New Tracks. So
yeah.
This is a great way to stay connected to the hobby. And Tom, said it, but it can't be said enough. And Dennis said it. Without you guys, we're going to be a dying breed. So please stay involved and apply what you're learning in your degrees. So much of this hobby has changed now with the digital technology that's there and everything else, as you could just see from what's going to be on this show tonight. So again, Tom, I don't know if you have anything else, but are we about good with time?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that over the course of this balance of this month and perhaps into August, we'd like to take the opportunity to interview you guys one at a time. That way, give a chance for our Zoom participants to ask questions and maybe do a little more in-depth interview. One of our big topics of discussion is what interests the youth in model railroading today. We make assumptions for things like 3D printing, which is, the filament and the resin. We make assumptions with the contribution of AI on model railroading. For example, I did a segment on creating a billboard in AI, just asking ChatGPT to come up with some creative billboard, and it was kind of amusing to do that. And then there's another field that we've talked about in our magazine, but we haven't touched on, and that's augmented reality. So basically you take a photograph of your railroad, download it, and all of a sudden your railroad's, people are walking around, people are talking. It's kind of a neat little angle. And then of course there's traditional modeling, so some of the questions would be, what is the appeal? You all started with Thomas the Tank, the wooden things, and you moved into various scales and things, but what perks your interest as, once you get through school and you become a young adult, what's going to be the driver? What do you think's most interesting in the hobby to you? And those will be some of the questions I'll be asking anyway. So get ready.
It's your first assignment.
Yeah, right.
Just,
Well,
just one more quiz.
Yeah. So again, thank you guys. Congratulations. Welcome to the New Tracks family, and Tom will be he'll be kind, believe me. He's a kind interviewer. So
they don't know
we'll
me.
have fun.
You
And we
guys,
look forward to seeing you guys again.
you should stick around for this next segment. You're going to see an absolute museum quality, world-class railroad. There's very few railroads that go to this degree of realism. This is really something else. So stick around, okay? Thank you again and congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Okay, so next up, I'd like to run the My Build video, and then we'll go to the next. We'll start the next portion of the show. Thank you, Bob. Great job.
Welcome to
Brilliance of the wrong ad.
It's tough to get good help these days.
It is. It is an absolute bear.
I'm going to cut your salary. Oh, that's right. You're a volunteer.
That's right. You can't cut anything.
Making a good impression on our boys here.
Yeah, it's okay. They know.
Don't miss the monthly New Tracks Modeling My Build event. My Build is where the modelers of New Tracks show what they have been building. See amazing modeling with some My Builds featuring specific topics for modeling. If you would like to have your models included in the My Build, please email your modeling photos to Chris Course at railrunner130@hotmail.com. If you are a first-time My Build participant, please include a photo of yourself.
And now I'd like to feature Chris Course for a few words on the My Build. There he is.
Yep. Yeah, I thought I wasn't going to be here, and the power went out, or the internet went out a few minutes ago. All right, let's see. The My Builds. Here is the schedule for the year. So July and August, anything goes. The submission deadline for July 23rd show is the 20th. And for the August 20th show, it is August 17th. Then we get back into the challenges in September, and that one will be backdrops. That show will be September 24th, and submission deadline for that one will be September 21st. So whatever you're working on, whatever you've got to share, we'd love to see it. Whatever you have on your workbench, maybe it's something that's been sitting in the parts bin for a while and you're sick of looking at it. Do something with it. Send us pictures of it, please. Especially if you have not participated before. We really want to see what you're working on, see what you're up to. It's a judgment-free zone. So, if it doesn't look so great, we're not going to tell you that, but maybe you want some advice with it. We'll offer advice if that's what you want. But anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much. And as our founder once said on watching things like My Build and the show in general, I'll never forget it. He said, if you didn't learn something this evening, you weren't paying attention. There's a lot of techniques that can be shared, mentoring opportunities, and even seasoned modelers pick up things that hadn't occurred to them. So the My Build's a good way to get a nice cross section of modelers. So thank you for running one of the most popular segments on New Tracks. Appreciate that, Mr. Course.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'd like to start the main body of the show. I assume Mr. Spady is on. There he
sure
is.
is.
The legend himself. We're really pleased that you're on, and welcome to New Tracks. And
Thank you, sir.
I'll before we start, just a quick couple of questions. softball questions. When did you start model railroading?
Well, not unlike the kids on the show, I started young. My parents were kind enough to buy me a Sears HO layout that I put together and put on a piece of plywood and played with trains as probably when I was about 8 or 9 years old. Did that for a while, and I've been modeling my whole life. I got into model cars, model planes, and about 20 years ago, I got back into model railroading. That was after girls and kids and divorce and all kinds of good things in my life. So, I'm back into it. I just I don't know if you want to hear about me or not, Tom, what I do, what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Up to you. So I am really a modular railroader. In fact, on the screen behind me is one of the modules that I built. But started that in about 2012, I guess, something like that. Belonged to a local group here for a long time. Unfortunately, I'm not playing in that sandbox anymore, primarily because I got involved with Sean in building this layout, which took up basically all my time. So I'm an ON30 modular railroader. My focus is scenery, weathering, things like that. Not so much operations, although I love running trains and doing operations. That's not my primary focus. I'm not really an empire builder. I'm more of a detail guy. Just a little bit about me. Oh, I'm also an architect. I happen to be the paymaster for our Pacific Southwest region NMRA division here in Los Angeles. I also edit the region's dispatch newsletter and do a lot of things in that organization.
Maybe, I don't know if it's part of your presentation. If it is, we'll start the presentation. But how'd you get hooked up with Sean Williams and this project?
I'll go into that as part of the presentation. I'll start that off. If you want me to start, I can start now.
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll follow with some questions with our Zoom people.
Sure, you got it. Let me see here. Let's do this. And I'll do this. Oops, let's sort this out. So hopefully you can see the first slide in the screen.
Yep. Excellent.
Superb. All right. So how did I get connected up with Sean? As I said, I am still a modular railroader. We were at a large layout event for the GTS show in Costa Mesa one year, and this young man walked up to me as I was running trains around a layout that was probably 40 by 40. And we started into a conversation, and he said, well, can I run a train? And I said, sure. I handed him the controller, and for about 2.5 hours, he ran my trains for me, which was really exciting to watch him. He was so engaged, so detail oriented. Sean's about 32 years old now, I guess. So when I first met him, he was in his late 20s. He's always wanted a layout. And as we got to know each other for his whole life, since he was a kid, and as we got to know each other better, one day he came up to me and he just said, I really want to build a layout. Would you be willing to help me? He was really excited about the work I had been doing and liked what he saw. And I said, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let me help you. I had no idea what I was getting into. We spent about 3 years working on this rather small layout. This is a 5 by 10 layout, and working basically 1 or 2 days a week, or working at home, building things and then bringing them to the layout and fitting them in. So about 3,000 hours, and 3 years later, we came up with what you're going to see here today. This presentation was really a how-to presentation, or is really a how-to presentation. So I'm going to talk about how we developed the ideas, where the ideas came from, kind of some of the techniques we used and so on. So everything from the initial design through kind of the final detailing. And although we call the layout done, it's never done. I'm still painting figures and putting details on the layout. It's a giant sponge for details. So like I said, these are some of the design criteria. This was Sean's dream, and I've tried to help him build his dream. It's a Pacific Northwest themed layout. It's all about, you know, evergreens and the deciduous forests of the Pacific Northwest. The layout is designed around an Ian Rice track plan. That's Ian down in the lower right corner. It's a Lilliput Loggers is the name of the layout or name of the track plan. And as far as we knew, we didn't think it had ever been built. And unfortunately, although Sean wanted Ian to see it, Ian passed away about a year before we were done. It's portable layout, even though it's 5x10. It is, so it had to be lightweight, it had to be portable. Sean wanted it in his garage, so it had to be liftable. It actually is stored above one of his vehicles in his garage. And I'll show you more about that later. We wanted all the buildings to be lighted, and Sean very much wanted this to be at a level of excellence that allowed the layout to be published. And it actually was published this year in the ON30 annual. So if you get a copy of that, you can check it out in probably more detail. But this is the track plan. Like I said, it's a 5x10 layout. We stretched. It starts out as a 4x8 layout in Ian's plan, and we stretched it out to 5x10 just to get ON30 to work with the track radii and so on. So you can see it's got several industries, a sawmill. It's got a wharf and a interface with the ocean. It's got the engine facilities. It's got a mine. Let me get rid of this. Sorry. It's got the Silverjack mine, and there's a logging camp area up in this area. The logging camp here, and then a log loading area up here. So very much centered around the industries of the Pacific Northwest. It has a continuous loop. So if we just want to drink beer and run trains around in a circle, we can do that. But the other portion of the layout is a point-to-point where from the mill up around this way, I assume you guys can see my cursor, tell me if you can't, up around this way, up to the log landing, and then back down is another operational characteristic. We figured that probably you could actually have 3 independent operators running on this layout simultaneously, one doing the logging run, one doing the mine run, and another switching down next to the wharf. So here's the technical stuff. I've said a lot of this already, but it is ON30. So it's O-scale narrow gauge, probably set in the, I'm going to say the 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s if you stretch it. It's 5x10. Primary industries are logging, mining, and the port. There's 12 structures on the layout. All of them are lighted. It's Pico Code 100 track. We talked about doing hand-laid track, but given the nature of it being portable, we were a little worried about the delicacy of hand-laid track and decided to go with Pico, which I use on my modules and I really like. All the switches are manual switches with frog juicers, and we use the NCE control system. So here's the base construction. It is 1x4 pine interlaced frame, glued and screwed together. It's extremely rigid and has held up really well to portability as we move it to different locations to show. We use 2-inch foam, XPS foam, which is extruded polystyrene foam. For those of you on the East Coast, you probably see this everywhere. In California, it's really hard to find. We just don't insulate with this product. So when you can find a 2-inch 4x8 sheet of this stuff, you buy it because it's not easy to get. This is how the layout is stored. Sean's kind of a technical genius. I'm the artistic guy, and he's more the technical guy in our team. He rigged up a lift system with the 4 points, 2 on each side of the layout, rising up to a common pulley that goes over to a winch on the wall over here that raises and lowers the layout. This is a manual winch. He's since changed it out to a Harbor Freight power winch that lifts this thing up in about 3 seconds. It's really pretty nice arrangement. The layout itself is built on, you saw the frame, but it's also supported on pretty strong and durable supports. The supports are actually for a high strength portable table, and we've rigged up the base of the table to receive these 1x3s that have 4-inch casters on them. One person can roll this around on a flat surface with no problem. Literally, I can move this around with one hand. Makes it very easy to bring it in and out at shows and whatnot. And I'll show you a little later how we do that. That's just a detailed view here of ultimately how the support connectors and the safety chain that we have on this are installed. So one thing that we did, we took Ian's plan and we went to, I don't know, I forget the guy's name. He does backdrops, and I apologize for not remembering his name, Joey Ricard. We went to Joey Ricard and asked him to print out the layout at 5x10 after we had mocked it up with a 1-foot grid. And he printed this out. And one thing that it made it extremely easy for us to understand how the track was going to go, where it was going to go. We printed out full-scale Xeroxes of all the switches, so you can see them laid on the track plan here, and we got a very good idea how switch transitions were going to work, where things would be, how things would line up, how well they would line up, and we did have to ultimately make some very minor adjustments, but it made a very effective tool for building on as we started to implement the track. And Tom, keep me posted on time because I can tend to ramble on.
No, you're good. Yep. So
I want to go a little bit into the track installation. Like I said, we use the printed out base to lay out our track. We took a Ponce wheel and we went through the track plan and pounced that onto the foam, and then took a black marker and laid out the center line of the track on the entire layout. And then we started to build the vertical transitions, because one thing we were extremely worried about on this layout was because it really started as an HO layout, you can blow it up horizontally, but then you also have to look at the vertical, because there's a lot of tunnels on this layout. There's 2 tunnels here. There's 2 tunnels in the back, on the back side of the layout. And so we took our tallest locomotive and looked at, do we have the clearances? And I think on not this locomotive, but the tallest one, we had about 3/8 of an inch of clearance under this overpass. And so it worked out. We used Woodland Scenic's riser system to get us up to the the logging area. And one thing I don't like about, I like the system. One thing I don't like about it is it's not terribly stable when it's just glued down. And so we used expanding foam in all the interstitial cracks in the riser system to really rigidify and stabilize it and really make sure it wasn't going to go anywhere or come loose at any point in time in the future of the layout. This layout has a view block down the center, which I really like because it almost gives you two completely separate, I'll call them scenes. So, going around the layout, you go from the ocean side, which is this side of the layout, to the mountain side, which is this side of the layout. And you really don't see one side to the other. This is right about at my eye level, the top of which is about 5'8" or something. So you really don't see over to the other side. You really have no idea what's going on the other side of the layout. We also had Joey Ricard print up backdrops for us, which are attached to the Masonite layout, or Masonite backdrop, excuse me. And here you can start to see some of the tunnels. We got a tunnel here, we got a tunnel here, and we have two tunnels kind of stacked on top of each other at this end. And so this is, building things up. This is really a view as we had started to play around with foam and look at, the landscape and what it was going to look like, how it was going to feel. Where did we feel like we had something reasonable going on? We did a lot of change to the actual, not a lot of change. We did some change as we built this thing up, and you realize, I don't really like that, or I want to do something different. You'll see here, we had built out right to the edge. The original intent was to have a waterfront edge right along here. And you'll see in this scene, we've carved that away, and we're going to put one of the sidings down at the port on piers. So that was something. We looked also at this portion of the layout, and originally we had a mine kind of buried in the mountainside and coming out to the mine tipple. And that changed as well. You see that a little later on. Some of the challenges we had was really getting the radii on the, transitioning from HO to ON30, getting the radii to really work completely well at all locations. This is one spot where we really had some difficulties. You're coming out of a switch, going into a 19-inch radius curve and into a tunnel. And we ended up really fighting with this one, and ultimately ended up really super elevating it because it took that amount of tweaking. I think we super elevated it about 3/16 of an inch in order to get the trains to the locomotives and the cars to trek properly. That's about a 2.5% grade right out of the switch to get us up onto this part of the layout. So that's kind of how the layout was organized. A little bit about the terrain development. I used Joel Bragdon's rock mold system a lot when I was doing my modular stuff, primarily because it's very light. It's a resin-based system that you drop his system into molds. And literally each one of these rock molds, if it were plaster, would weigh half a pound. And these weigh literally just 2 ounces, 3 ounces. It's extremely light, very good detail. And I really like this system. It is a bit technically complex. It's a 3/4 part process where you take your latex mold, you put in mold release, then you spray white latex or white lacquer into the mold, and you can see over here what that looks like. you then come in and put a resin surface onto that lacquer. Once that starts to set and gets a little bit gelled, then you pour in a 2-part expanding foam product on top of that. It's all about timing on this thing. And at a certain point in time where this stuff all starts to gel, you can take the mold and, slap it into position where you want it. And it's still flexible. You can mold it to whatever kind of shape you want. And it'll set in about 5 minutes, and you've got a rock hard mold to work with. And I will tell you this, this is probably one of the best tools we ever got for damaging our layout. It makes it extremely simple to just cut into, resin mold, resin rock molds. All of our foam shaping was really done with this oscillating saw. And if you don't have one, I'd certainly recommend that you get one. We did a lot of just ultracal or hydrocal, not ultracal, hydrocal transitions between the rock molds. And you'll see how they turned out a little bit later. But, I have no compulsion about chopping up rock molds and fitting them to, whatever I think things should look like. But this is kind of where you end up. The Bragdon process, another layer to the Bragdon process is that he recommends that you gesso all the molds so that any stains or paints really soak into that gesso surface and give you some retention. Otherwise, you're trying to stain or paint a lacquer surface, and it really doesn't absorb materials very well. So we just gessoed everything that wasn't going to be covered up or was a building or structure. We gessoed, and that's for consistency. So as I am going through and staining the gesso surface, you get consistency and color across the entirety of the rock terrain. And although it's a little bit hard to see here, well, let me start off with this. The first step here is just taking dry tempera, and that's like kids, color paints in school. Take dry tempera, you brush down the entire surface, and then you sponge it off, and that leaves the tempera paint embedded in all the cavities and cracks and shadows, and gives you really nice deep shadow colors. And then I go back over that surface with several washes. So I'll start with a gray wash, and you can start to see there's a little bit of rust tone in here. I use 2 or 3 different colors, and I just literally, I don't know if I have a picture of it here. If I don't, I take a tray and I have gray and black and rust and tan, and I just dip the brush in that very lightly. Dip the brush then into literally a tub of water and just wash that over the surface, and it gives you some really nice variation in the color of the rock. And we were shooting for kind of that dark basalt rock that's pretty evident all around the Pacific Northwest. And also you can see here where we knew we were going to have some kind of ground terrain, grass, rocks, dirt, whatever. I first paint the ground brown, just so if something does show through as you're putting your landscape down, it shows through brown. And this looks like a ridiculous effort, but it was Sean's idea. He learned about it on the internet somehow, about painting ties different colors. And I thought he was crazy. I said, but I'll give it a shot, Sean. And so we ended up painting every tie different colors. And after we did that, we go over it with a gray chalk. And it's the kind of chalk that you would use for carpentry stamp lines. You can get black chalk, it actually is, for those snap lines, and it's like $2 for a big bottle of it, as opposed to, you know, really expensive pan pastels or some other chalk product. And you go back over this mishmash of color with that gray, and it just blends out everything, and you get these wonderful little light variations in the colors of the ties, which doesn't show terribly well here, but it's actually very positive in terms of how it looks. Obviously, we rusted the rails and all the spikes as well. So this is the, you know, the magic dirt. Really getting that dirt layer down. We literally went out in the backyard of Sean's house and dug up dirt and cooked it and did just a white glue down to get it into location. Pretty standard procedure there. You can really start to get a sense of what things are going to look like. Of course, in this view, you can see we've installed the trestle here. We've installed the pier, some of the cribbing that was going to be behind buildings, and some of the retaining walls that are on the layout. So next step was really the fascia. We got a little carried away early in putting some of the grass down. I would have held off on this, but Sean was just desperately wanted to see some green on the layout. So yeah, we did some of the grassy areas before we put the fascia on. And quite honestly, we should have done it after, because I use this laminate router to route the edges of the fascia to fit the terrain. And it did kind of dig gouges a little bit. The wheel that the laminate router runs on tended to gouge a little bit, but you know, we just went back and filled it in and everything was fine. You can also see here where we took hydrocal, broke it up into little chunks, stained it with the same color paints and whatnot that we used on the gessoed areas, and used that for the rock fall at the bottom of rock walls, the talus that is typical for these kind of conditions. This side is a trestle. You can see the hanging track here, but there'll be a big trestle in here. You'll see a little bit later on with a creek underneath it. Oh, and then there's a creek comes down off of the top of the layout. There's a waterfall, then a second waterfall down to here. So this is an in-progress shot. This is not complete, but really put it in here to give you a sense of what the fascia does and how it follows the terrain. You can also see the backdrop. We were actually incredibly lucky, not a lot of forethought, but the colors in the backdrop actually matched really well with a lot of the colors in our landscape materials, and it just really you almost can't tell where the layout stops and the backdrop starts. Oh, that's the mountainside. Again, you can see the logging area, log loading area, the camp down, the logging camp down here. And then this is the ocean side. Again, you can see the fascia. There are engine facilities here. This is again the wharf and the pier down on this end. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the landscape. I'll go into the trees in a minute. We used a very standard static grass application. We basically static grassed everything that wasn't going to be dirt and use that as a base. I mix 3 colors of static grass together to give a lot of variation in the color of the grass. And you don't really see it in the photographs, but because I don't mix those three colors together in the applicator, they come out sort of individually clumps. And so you get a little bit of brown here, a little bit of greener here, a little bit of tan over there, and it really creates a very naturalistic look in your static grass. This was a labor of love. I have to tell you, a lot of the hours that we spent on this layout were spent creating trees. Keith Wiseman gave us some kind of starter trunks that he wasn't going to use. These are cedar trunks made out of shakes. So we split the shakes. We didn't have enough, so I ended up making a lot of our own, but we take those cedar shakes, we turn them down or cut them down. I use my belt sander. I just put it on auto and set it up, and I sand those things down to a point, and then I take a razor saw, and you can kind of see it here, scribe bark texture into them. This is a set of resin trunks. I use these resin trunks on my modules, but we didn't use them on the layout, but it does show you the progression between kind of a raw trunk. I paint it black. I go over that with kind of a light gray so the black goes into the crevices and creates shadow and depth. I take my wife's, can't tell her this, but I take my wife's broom and I cut bristles that are off the bottom of it, and they make wonderful dead limbs at the bottom of the tree trunks. And then I'll show you a little bit more about this, but I use a furnace filter material, glue it to the trunk, paint it black, and then go over it with two colors of ground foam to give you this kind of look. You'll see a little bit of moss on the trunks. We had a lot of conversations about which way is north, because the moss is always on the north edge of or north side of the trunks. So this is that furnace filter material. It's called Duralast natural fiber filters. It's kind of a coarse, we think it's boar's hair or something akin to that. Cut triangles out of it, split those triangles in half, glue those to the trunk, and tease the crap out of them, excuse my language, but you can see none of these look like really sharp triangles, so we've teased the edges, really trying to get the trees or the branches, the foliage, to have a naturalistic look. The deciduous trees, Sean ran into this guy named Don Ledger. I believe he's in Arizona, and he makes these wonderful deciduous trees. I told Sean I didn't like making deciduous trees. I'm not particularly great at it. And so he reached out to Don, and we bought, I don't know, 60 or so deciduous trees. There's over 150 conifers and probably about 50 or 60 deciduous trees on this layout. Don's a funny guy. Sean had told him this is summer. We want, full summer foliage, and he sent us a bunch of fall foliage. And Sean reached out to him and said, we really can't use these. He said, send them back. I'll send you new ones. I guess he just sits around in his armchair at night making trees, and they're not terribly expensive. They're probably more expensive than some people would like, but they're reasonably priced. This tree in the center is probably about that's 12 inches tall, I think. He does it all with rope fiber, jute fiber, and they make really wonderful trunks and texture. So bushes and landscape, there are probably, I'm going to guess maybe 5 or 6 different kinds of bushes. There's a mix of commercial bushes, and as we were starting to get into really trying to landscape the layout, we realized we could not afford to buy just commercial bushes. And in fact, we really didn't like it when they were like what it looked like when we just used the commercial bushes. So we started doing this technique of using jute twine, tweezing it out, gluing the base of it, going over it with hairspray and fixing the framework and rigidly with hairspray, and then going back over it with paint. And before the paint would dry, we would sprinkle on textured foam, ground foam, static grass materials to give us a broad variety of different kinds of bushes, different colors, different shapes. It's a real cool technique, and it gives you a really wonderful kind of realistic, a lot of the bushes here that you see are that type of bush. There's over 800 of these on the layout. So that bush right there is one of those. We also use polyfoam to create kind of ivy or things growing down over the top of the rocks. And with just ground foam sprinkled on, painted brown and ground foam sprinkled on the top of it to give us that vegetative look. So you combine all that together, you end up with some pretty interesting landscapes. The water, I had been using a product by Unreal Details called Magic Water, and they went out of business, unfortunately. So we ended up going to using Woodland Scenic's Water Effects product. It is a pretty good product. It stays a little bit flexible, which on this layout, because it moves around and whatnot, is a good thing. It doesn't get extremely rigid, just hard enough to stay in place. So this is Sean going in and tweaking all the bubbles and little crevices and cracks along the perimeter of the layout, trying to get that product worked into the landscape. That takes about 2 weeks to really dry enough where you can do something else to it. So basically we cover it up, close up the garage and walk away for 2 weeks and don't do anything on the layout. We go build buildings or do something else in that time frame. Really important that you cover this up so you don't get dust and crud, on the water surface. The whole surface here is probably about 3/16 to a 1/4 inch thick is all it is. One thing that gives us the depth that we want to get is I do a graduated paint. So I'll start with really flat black out in the deeper water and gradually add brown to it until up around the water's edge. You can kind of start to see it here. It almost goes to the color of the rocks and gives you that gradated feel of going from deep water to shallow water. This is what the product that we used for the primary base for the water. And once that sets up, I go over it with this Liquitex product, and I've used this on all my modules. It's a great product. It goes on white, and you think, oh my God, I've ruined my water, but it dries crystal clear. And you can texture your water surface. A lot of this surface is dead flat. And just I use a brush and I just stipple it and play with it and tweak it around till it looks like, it's got a wavy surface or a water blown surface. And then this is it's a gloss heavy gel. It's actually, you can build up waves. So I'll build up the waves. Let's say those waves are maybe 5/16 to a 1/2 inch tall. And when that material sets, you come back, it's all crystal clear. You just dry brush it with white acrylic paint, and you've got your waveforms. Everybody thinks it's a very challenging artistic thing to do, and it's not. It's actually quite easy to do. I use that same Liquitex product to create the waterfalls. I paint the Liquitex onto a sheet of glass. And once it's cured out, you can literally peel it off the glass and glue it in place on the layout. This is sort of a view where it's partially cured. It's not fully cured out, but I wanted to get it on the layout in its before it had fully cured. It dries clear just like it does in the flat portions, and then I go back over it and I dry brush with white paint to give the effect of falling water. I use a very, very tiny amount of white polyfoam at the bottom, just to give a sense of a little bit of spray effect. Less is more for that kind of thing. And then structures, I think there's 12 structures on the layout. A lot of these we've already gone over. The dock and Al's place is in memory of Al Judy, who really has been was a driving force in ON30. He's a fantastic modeler, and a driving force in ON30 modeling on the East Coast, and really has reached out his tendrils out to the West Coast to a lot of us who model in ON30. But so we got the sawmill, the dock, cabin in the woods, the Silverjack mine, all the engine facilities, the hanging rock trestle, and Camp 3 and the smithy and the log landing. I'll go over those really quick. How am I doing on time, Tom? Here, I'll continue on. This is a sawmill. This is a heavily kit bashed. I think it's a John Rendell kit. It's not totally prototypical. There's no log pond. Basically, they're rolling the logs off the cars onto the landing and then up into the mill to be cut. We just didn't have very much room, so it's representational, but it's not really truly prototypical. A lot of fun. I had a lot of fun building this. It was again, I think the only thing that came out of the kit was the back wall. And I used the materials in the kit to build the rest of it, kind of from a scratch standpoint. This is the pier. The pier is just coffee stir sticks with dowels. Trying to create realism here. I hammered down the top of the dowels so it looks like they've been piers driven into the water. You can see we did barnacles and stuff growing on the bottom, a lot of nut bolt washer castings, things like that, just to try and give some realism. This is one area where we really think we need more detail. It's okay, but it's not at the level that I would like it to be. The Silverjack mine, this is a kit. Whoops, sorry. This is a kit. I forget whose kit it is, but all the rest of this, the trestle, the dump, and the head frame is all scratch built. We didn't want to create something really elaborate. This is sort of a backwoods gypsy mine that's trying to operate and bring some silver out of the mountains. The engine house. Sean and I had an interesting collaboration on a lot of these. He built the base building and did the base painting, and then he turns it over to me and says, "Can you weather this and make it look good?" Not that he doesn't do a great job, but because he does. But I do all the weathering, and I use Bragdon powders a lot to create, streaks on the roof, just rust and dust everywhere. I take a toothpick and I do rusty nail holes on the windows, sit over the engine house doors, things like that. As far as the signs go, I print out signs on photo paper. I pull them off the internet. I make them up in Word. I do all kinds of things. And then I take that photo paper and I sand the back of it down until you basically just have the emulsion. And that creates a very thin paper-like application that you can just white glue onto the building or wherever you're applying. There's probably 100 hours of detail just in this building alone with painting all these, all the details. Almost all of our buildings are lighted. So the engine house has, full lighting inside. I try to try to give it as much realism as I can. That's an L. Judy building right there. We were not shy about saying, hey, would you like to build a building and put it on the layout? Al did one. Dave Meek, if you know who Dave Meek is, he built the water tank on the other side. Sean built this water tower, and I did a little bit of weathering on it, but not much. We have a combination of coal-fired locomotives and wood-fired locomotives, so we have both fuel sources here at this point. Sean printed out a jig. He's big into 3D printing, and he just printed out a jig for us to build all the tunnel portals. So you see all the tunnel portals kind of look the same, because we used the same jig to build them out. That made it very easy to build the tunnel portals. This is the Camp 3. This is a smithy, 2 camp buildings. This is that Dave Meek water tower, and then a little chicken coop over here. These buildings are all lighted. And this is that hanging rock trestle that I was telling you about with the waterfalls. This was fun because I took we placed the track, and I just did a rubbing of the track radius, and I built the trestle around that rubbing. Made it very easy to figure out how to space things out and what radius it ought to be, and so on and so forth. I did not build the trestle first and try and put the track to it. It was the opposite. You can see here some of the there's commercial cattails in here and some commercial shrubs down in this area. These light green shrubs are all commercial shrubs. One thing that I do is on the rock molds, I take ground foam, I put some glue on the rock, just brush it on, and I take ground foam and hold it in the palm of my hand and just blow it onto the rocks. And you can see how it creates this kind of mossy surface, which is perfect for Pacific Northwest. This is the logging landing. This was a kit, and it was a little bit brutal to install, fun to build, but brutal to install. A lot of finicky rigging and wires. I use a upholstery thread for the rigging, which is kind of a heavy duty thread. I had to fabricate some of my own. I think some of these are Sierra West pulleys and whatnot, but I had to fabricate some of my own because I really wanted this to look prototypical. So I had did some research, had a lot of research that I used to generate the hay rack log loading situation there. Getting towards the end here. So a lot of details, hundreds of hours in detail, thousands of little bits and pieces, and the layout just sucks up details. It's unbelievable. You think you've got enough to cover the entire layout. It covers a 2-foot square area. So, you never have enough. This is one detail exercise. I probably did something similar to this maybe 3 or 4 times over the course of the build. So like I said, a lot of details around the buildings. This is a clothesline behind the camp. This is some of the interior detail before we glued down the engine house. The roof of the engine house actually comes off, so you can actually look down inside and see the interior. Again, little things, that kind of set you apart, like snags, old snags of a lightning struck tree with an eagle sitting in it. Not something that gives character, but you don't really see very often on layouts. No, we always get the question, is it portable? Sure, it's very portable. This is at one of the GTS shows. we have layout groups, modular groups that come in and spend 6 hours setting up. We were set up and running trains in about 25 minutes at this show. And we rent a U-Haul, lift it up into the back of the U-Haul, strap it down, and haul it to wherever we're going. This is, any of you know Gary Beatty, he does every year what he calls a Fiesta, and it's really a wonderful gathering of invited modelers who bring small layouts. And ours was by far the largest layout at his home. And there's probably 30, 35 micro layouts at these shows that he does. Really a lot of fun. Get a lot of Disney folks here that are very talented modelers. So this is a final look. These are shots, Mike Massey, those are shots taken for the ON30 annual this year. Just give you a sense of how the layout looks. This is the ocean side. There you can see one of the snags that we developed. This is the hanging rock trestle. I think you saw that image earlier. Camp 3 and the upper log landing loading area where the trains come up and pick up the logs. Some really nice big first growth timber here. And that's the end. A lot of people contributed to this layout, not the least of which is Sean's wife. And my wife too. They've both been extremely patient about the time spent on this layout. Like I said, about 3,000 hours. And, every Sunday I'd go over to Sean's house, get there about 6:30 in the morning and leave about 2 in the afternoon. And we would just work on the layout over a period of about 3 years. So a lot of good people involved in this effort.
How's the weather out there?
How's the weather? It's probably 85 degrees right now, sunny. It's always sunny. It's always sunny in Southern California. So anyway, I guess, Tom, open it up to questions.
Yeah. I think everybody's probably spellbound. This is a absolutely stunning model railroad. And does anybody have any questions for Kevin?
Yes. Hi, Kevin. That's fantastic work that you've done. What is the total weight of the layout? I'm curious.
About 240 pounds.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, we really put effort into keeping it absolutely as light as possible. That's one reason, the foam and the Bragdon products are very, very light. So
nice. Well done.
Thank you.
Kevin, this is Dan Rousseau. Any chance we could get you guys to come to Harrisburg with it? We would love to have it at Harrisburg.
Dan, Sean and I talked about it in a joking kind of way, but I'm not sure I want to drive 3,000 miles in a U-Haul.
I know.
Actually, 6,000 miles in a
U-Haul. Well, hey,
I
just retired. I'll come drive.
Make it a road trip. 4 of us will go.
That's right.
There you go.
Yep. No, great work. And I tell you, one of the things that you did that I really liked was that crazy trick with the track and the ties. I literally on my layout, I am doing hand laid track, and I went through the process of staining the ties in small batches, various colors. And so that was really interesting to see that you guys had gone and painted the ties in various colors, and then went back over it with a final
the
wash.
chalk. Yeah,
the chalk.
No, I was shocked, Dan, at the transition. I mean, you look at that first photo and you think, oh my God, this is a clown show. We'll have to rip it all up and take it out. And at the end of the day, it looks absolutely fantastic. Looks great.
But that's also one of those techniques, just like the other one that you used on your layout, which is, going in it's a stage technique. The stage set designers use this in Hollywood for years, which is the all black, right?
Mhm.
Getting that into the crevices and then bringing up, everything with highlights and the depth of field that that creates on your scenery is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I learned to do that a long time ago with, even plaster molds and whatnot. Is just you go black first, and then you bring out the lights as you develop that finish. You go lighter and lighter. You go black, black, and then you go over it with washes, and then you dry brush the highlights. I mean, literally with a light tan or something, just to bring those edges out on the molds.
Kevin, once you put the chalk on the ties, did you seal those?
No, we
No,
did
okay.
not. It has an adhesive quality in the material. It doesn't seem to need to be. I mean, to some extent, Bob, I think probably there is some degree of that, because when you glue down your ballast, you're
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
going over it with white glue. So I guess the answer would be yes, but it's part of the ballasting process.
And I really like the
Yeah.
way that you made those waterfalls. I mean, it's so obvious once you show it.
Hey,
Kevin,
Kevin,
it's
one
first
question.
Yeah.
Oh, go
Let
ahead.
me
I'm
make
sorry.
one comment about the waterfalls. I was just going to say, this first time I ever did it, I was scared out of my mind that it wasn't going to work. But it ended up being really very, very effective. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, great idea.
Hey, Kevin, this is Phil at home. One of the things that works well on the ties is actually to use the pan pastels.
Right.
They
Yeah.
work really well to color the ties. You take about 4 or 5 colors of pan pastels and just go through tie, and then I sprayed them with a dull coat afterwards. Before I did the side rows, rusted them. Works well.
Right. No, I can see that. It's kind of the same idea. As you just want variation in the ties. You don't want them all to be the same color. So
Exactly.
especially at O scale, at O scale, it's kind of the difference between HO and O, I guess, or even the smaller scales, is that the bigger things get, the more you have to pay attention to the detail, because the detail is obvious, as the scale gets larger and larger.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kevin. That was just absolutely stunning. And thank you for taking the time to be on New Tracks Live. And maybe we can have you on again with another project.
Yeah, I've got other presentations. Actually, I did a presentation with Jim Kello a couple years ago on modular layouts. So if you guys want something, I'd be happy to do something again.
I'll hold you to that. Thank you.
I know you will.
Well, thank you very much. And we've got 2 more presentations this evening. Before we move to the next presentation, I'd like to feature our New Tracks Modeler digital magazine video.
Get more New Tracks modeling by reading the New Tracks Modeler magazine. Each edition of New Tracks Modeler includes exciting articles about modeling shown on the show, other modeling topics, and prototypical railroading information. Other articles focus on outstanding model railroaders and new products from a range of suppliers. Don't miss the photos of the popular New Tracks My Build. You can download New Tracks Modeler for free from the New Tracks Modeling website. Subscribe so you don't miss an issue.
One quick word on the magazine. Some of you, particularly the next 2 presenters, are aware that I take your PowerPoints and I convert them into articles for the magazine. That's a unique ability we have that none of the major 4 model railroad magazines have. We have an arsenal of nearly 1,000 videos. So one quick note, when you do a PowerPoint, henceforth, anybody out there in New Tracks land, make sure you put a couple descriptive texts on your photos. So when I use one of the AI engines to pick up on the text, it has something to read. It can't read a video. Anyway, so next we have Jeff Jordan for our Master Model Series. Jeff's going to do mini-recordable sound modules. Jeff, long time participant in the show. Welcome to the show as a presenter this evening.
Thank you. I understand Phil has got my slides.
Yes.
I realized I didn't put any background in here. I just wanted to add a little background very quickly that I was a very early adapter to sound and model railroading, and today have a very large collection of obsolete sound systems. When digital sound became available through DCC, I was all in. Today, all of my locomotives have digital sound. But I was also aware of background sound and a couple of systems that offered varieties of background sound, but nothing I ever really adapted. And then recently I became aware of this system that I'm going to describe tonight, which permits you to very inexpensively, on a standalone basis, add bits of background sound to your layout. And I think background sound is a good addition, though locomotives with sound are kind of the star of the show. Having bits of sound with the various features in your background really adds another element and more depth to your scenes. And so with that, here's an easy way to add some background sound. Yeah, there we go. This was my discovery. Browsing through Walmart's online market, I discovered these recordable sound modules. They apparently originally were designed for the greeting card industry. When you get a birthday card and open it, it would sing you happy birthday. Well, this is basically how they did it. Though this has got pretty good sound fidelity, and you can see here when you purchased it online for $9.41, and look what you get. There's a sound module in there. There's a USB cable, there's a speaker, there's a battery, there's an on-off switch. There's a little bitty screwdriver in there to adjust the volume on a rheostat, some bits of double stick tape. Is basically everything you need in the way of hardware, except for your computer, to get started. And at this price, it's easy to get several of them and try them out. So I started with one and was so happy that I ordered several more, and I'm in the process of looking for places in my layout where a little bit of background sound can be added. So next slide, please. Oop, there you go. So there's the contents of my package. And you can't see the battery here only because I used the double stick tape to stick it to the back of the circuit board, which is otherwise blank, and make it easy to attach that, in this case, below the benchwork, but I've also got other techniques for hiding it. And you've got the on-off switch, the speaker, the USB cable. Note, rather frustratingly, when this package arrives from Walmart's, there are no instructions whatsoever. However, go to YouTube. Lots of folks have played with these circuits. There are lots of introductory videos on how these circuits can be assembled, how to set them up, and how to use them. So next slide. So when you've got the thing out of the box, you plug in the battery, and incidentally, all of those little white boxes are everything comes with a plug and an indication of which plug is which. So you can plug in the battery, the switch, and the speaker where indicated on the module. Even though later you may modify some of those wires to get going, just hook it up straight out of the box. Next slide. It comes with the USB cord and the mini USB that plugs into the computer port. You just plug that in, turn on the circuit, and a little LED will come on and shows you that the battery is charging. Also, the computer will recognize, next slide, will recognize the module as an external drive, just as if you had plugged in a thumb drive. Next slide. Now, the module has two slide switches on it. Again, when you look at it, it's fairly obvious they're marked. One is just a power switch, on and off. When you're done for the day, switch them off so they don't sit there and discharge themselves. They're supposedly good for about an hour and a half or 2 hours of use before they need to be recharged. The other switch is a play switch, which gives you a choice of, in our case, single play, which is whatever your sound recording is, you push the black button and it'll play once. Or you can set it on repeat mode, in which case it'll play over and over again until you push the button to stop it. There is a third position, which is probably not much use to us, which is a next file button. If you have multiple sound files on the system, it will play them sequentially and then stop. Next slide. The module comes with several tunes preloaded. You can see here that it comes, in my case, loaded with Christmas is Coming, a Christmas tune that I had never heard before. Do they have Christmas tunes in China? How Old Are You? And Happy Birthday. And go to the next slide. You turn on the module, press the black button, and next slide, or next, there you go. The tune will play. And so these pre-recorded tunes are useful to confirm that you've done everything right. The battery is charged, everything is switched on, the mode is selected properly, and they all play. And then after that, delete them. You will never want them again. But they are a good test run. So now, how do you get the sound? There are lots of places on the internet where you can get sound files. This device does not offer direct recording. That is, you can't talk into it, or you have to have a sound file that gets downloaded onto the device. But that was fine for me. I searched around, and among the web pages I found is this one, freesound.org. It's a web page for sound hobbyists. Who knew there was such a thing? People who go out and collect interesting sounds, and they post them to this web page. And as a result, according to the web page, there are over 400,000 sound files on this web page, all free when you're using it for private use. There's some limitations if you were going to use them commercially, but to just download and use it on your model railroad is entirely free. You sign up by establishing a free account, which is very simple. Your email address, a couple of other things. They don't spam you, they don't email you, but you're in, they know who you are. If you're abusing their files, I'm sure you'd hear from them, but otherwise, very simple to get in. And then you search for sound. You can see there's a search bar right in the middle of the page there, and you just type in what you're looking for. And in my example, I think it shows the next one. The first one I wanted to do was add blacksmith to my blacksmith shop. And so I literally just typed in blacksmith and told it to search. And if you go to the next slide, the search for blacksmith came up with a whole bunch, pages of hits. And you can preview each one on your computer. As long as the sound is on, just click on it and it plays back. The little graphic there is kind of useful because it gives you a sense of the sound density. If it's a very quiet file, those little spikes will be very small. If it has long quiet periods, you'll see the spikes are spaced out. So you can kind of get a sense even before you start what the sound file is going to be like. Also, it does tell you, you can see just below the diagram there, how long it plays. And that's important because this file, this circuit does not hold a massive amount of data. And I think it takes like a minute and a half. And if you try and download a longer sound file, you'll just get an error message that says not enough room. So pick one that's the right, not too big. As you preview them, pick out one you like. And then when you find one you like, if you haven't already signed into your freesound.org account, sign into your account. And then you literally click on the file from that previous page where there was the list. Just click on the one you want. And next slide there. You just select the desired file literally from that long list by clicking on it, and then it'll take you to a page that looks like this, which is that actual sounds separate file. It has more information about it. If there are comments, you can read the comments on it. Often the donor, provider may have comments about what the sound is, where he got it, what you hear. If there's talking in the background, they'll mention that. If there are other ambient sounds, they'll mention that. There's a lot of description of the sound, which also can be helpful in your selection. The next slide. And so if you've gotten this far and you like what you've seen, you like what you heard, you literally click on the download sound button, and it will ask you where you want to save the file. And you just pick the location on your computer. If you create a separate file for sound files, whatever, download it to your download the file to your computer. And then once it's in your computer, moving it to the sound circuit is very easy. In my case, I went to the file, and in the left-hand column there, it shows all the available locations on my computer, just like it were a thumb drive. And you just literally can highlight on the sound file there, drag it and drop it right into your sound chip, as if you were moving it to an external drive. Now, having done that, next slide, then you go click on the module like an external drive to make sure it shows that it's in there and shows that you have successfully copied it. It doesn't transfer, it successfully copied it to the external drive. Then just give your computer the command to remove the external drive, disconnect the USB cable from your computer, and that whole little unit, battery, switch, speaker, and the circuit card are ready to go to place on your layout. And here's one installation. I've actually done several now. In this case, this structure is the blacksmith shop. And I tend to leave the roof off or loose on structures where I have interiors so I can get back inside. And as you can see in this one, on the lower little yellow square is an LED for illuminating it. And I used the same wire route that I'd used for the LED light for the speaker, and used the thick double stick tape that came with the package to mount the little speaker up there in the roof. Now, here's where you may have to do a little modification. The speaker comes with only a couple of inches of wire. So next slide, please. I needed to extend the speaker wire. No big deal. You can even see in the picture there with the heat shrink. All I did was cut the wire, strip it, sand or solder a much longer length of wire that brought it to the back of my front panel where I had mounted the sound circuit so that it's easily accessible if I need to take it out to recharge it. And you place the module and the play button in a convenient spot. If you want to completely conceal this play button, you can conceal it. If you want to put it on the front, you can do that. And then mount it. Do mount the sound circuit card someplace where you can get at it, because it does have an on-off switch, and you're going to want to turn it off when you're done for the day. And with that, your sound module is ready to use. With it installed in its home now, you're going to want to play it and see how the sound sounds. that is volume wise. The thing produces a surprising amount of volume. You do not have to have it necessarily turned up full blast. Especially in my case, I don't want you to be able to hear the sound across the room. I want you to see or hear the sound for this scene when you're looking at this scene, and when you go on and look at another scene, and somebody else plays it, it's deep in the background. When you're done, you turn off the power switch on the module. And in my case, all you have to do is unplug the speaker cable from the card and the whole card. And then I have it set up that I can remove the circuit, take it back to my computer, or you could bring your computer over to your layout and just plug in the thing with the USB cable when the battery needs recharging. The battery recharges very quickly. It's a small battery, and it doesn't take much to recharge it. And I think that's what I've got on the setup and the installation. And then Tom, I think you have a couple of my video files, which actually, since we're talking about sound, I thought it'd be good to let you actually hear some of the sounds.
Let's see if this will work. Does everybody see that? Let's see if you can hear this.
Yes.
Did you share it with audio? Did you click on the share audio when you shared?
I don't know. Is you hearing anything?
No. Go ahead and share it again. But before you share it, there's a thing that says optimize for video on the share. You'll see it. It's kind of on the right side.
Advanced sharing options. Just a minute. It doesn't say that.
Hey, Jeff, a couple of quick questions. Is there any provision for external power?
No.
Okay.
So wait, this is Phil, by the way. I was going to comment on that. You can, I'm sure, connect USB power to it all the time and have it powered on. And you can do that either with, a USB chip, the ones they put on those 12 volt, if you got 12 volt power on your layout, or you can use a buck. I bought those, you buy those voltage bucks, they cost about $1.50, and you can adjust the output to 5 volts and then connect that up to plug into the USB jack.
Okay.
Yeah, that is an important point. That battery is not a 12 volt battery. It is a 5 volt battery.
Right.
I have not, I think you're right. I think it will play while the USB cable is plugged into your computer.
Yeah. Sure. It's just for power.
My second question is, will it turn on when power is applied?
Again, it comes with a power switch, that little black button, and that's how the circuit works. Again, remember its history was it was in a greeting card, and so it was activated when the greeting card opened.
Yeah.
And so it needs some sort of external switch.
Yeah, I'd like to have something like that where I could just turn power on and it would basically turn itself on, play the sound for the duration that the power was on. And so when the layout's off, the sound's off. When the layout's on, sound's on.
Yeah,
it does provide the continuous play mode, so you can switch it on and leave it run until the battery runs out, basically. But I'm not aware that because it has the on-off switch, I think it needs to be activated by the on-off switch.
Okay.
You might be able to just short out the switch, and that would cause it just to turn on. The other thing is there's a guy named he's ITT Technology or something like that. He's down in LA, and he sells a sound module for about $40 that has a whole bunch of pre-programmed sounds on it. So that's another option if you want to, have something pre-done. I did, by the way, Jeff, I just want to add two things that, having done some of this, that I think are interesting. Why is the recording stopped?
Why does it keep turning off?
That's no idea. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, one is there's a program called Audacity. So that's like Audio City Audacity. It's actually available free online. It's an audio editor program, and you can edit multiple streams of audio. So if you wanted to mix 2 or 3 things together to create a sound, like if you wanted to take and do a platform, and you wanted to have a voice mixed in with train sounds to do a platform of a train arriving, you could do it in that. The other thing that I found is there's a cube speaker. I bought them from Tony's Trains. They're about 1.1 inch speakers in a little black cube. And those work really good for inside structures. They're in an enclosure and it gives you a lot better bass to the sound. So just two kind of little suggestions. But great. I like that unit. I'm gonna definitely buy me one of those. They're gonna have a run on those. They're not gonna be able to ship them anymore from China.
Originally, they were coming from China. The last batch actually came from California.
Well,
And Phil, another source for speakers is the speakers that actually come in cell phones. And I purchased them some time ago. They're very, very small, but you can put your cell phone on the speaker mode and you get enough volume out of there to hear in a limited space. That works fairly well.
Jeff, I got one question.
Yeah.
Those sounds, do they not tell you how long they will play?
They do.
Okay.
And the availability of a free sound editor is actually good news, because I found a number of files that I really liked, but they were too long. And if you can edit them, especially just cut them down, pick out the portion, the minute and a half that you really like out of the 6 minutes.
That's what this Audacity does. Just try. It's really simple. You just bring the file in. You can cut out just what you want, and then you save it as an MP4, and you're done. Download it into the module, and you're done.
You can also.
It's also worth mentioning that this plays two sound file types: WAV files and MP3s.
You can also use Audacity to EQ the sound too. We use it all the time.
Good.
And
I'll say again.
I put
go
up
ahead.
in the chat. I put in the chat a link to another company called Electronics 123. They make a little more robust unit, about $16, but it's a 3-watt amplifier on a board, and they have units that'll play 1 sound, 4 sound, 10 sounds. So check them out. They got a lot of interesting stuff.
I just checked Amazon and there's some Prime deal days today on these very items. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have them as low as $6 a piece.
That's amazing.
And
when you look at what's in that
anybody
package
listening,
and think about the
well, I was gonna say,
value
if
of the
anybody-
circuit, the battery, the speaker, the switch, for less than $10, it's amazing.
Yeah. What was
If you're
that?
on a Mac, you should have GarageBand. You can do it all in that too.
Okay.
Good find, Jeff.
Thank you,
Jeff.
Good
Sorry, the
find.
sounds wouldn't. I mean, I could hear them perfectly fine on when I was playing them, but I guess they weren't playing through the Zoom. Sorry about that. So.
Yeah, and if anybody needs any help with any type of audio files or anything like that, I did that for 15 plus years. I'm more than happy to help anybody. I'd rather teach you how to do it. If you don't want to do it, I'll be more than happy to do it for you for free. I can edit files. I can combine different types of files for you, email them to you. I can convert them to smaller file types so that if it's a problem of file size and not necessarily length of the sound, but file type, I can actually compress it down to a different file, and you might be able to get a 5-minute sound file out of it just because of the space it takes up, and not necessarily mess with the quality too much. So if anybody needs any help with the audio side of that, I'm more than willing to help.
Yeah. And just to give you an idea of what I accomplished, if the videos won't play, one of them, as you saw, is the blacksmith shop, and I just found a really nice sound file of blacksmith. You hear the clang of the hammer on the metal, and it's set at a level that when you walk up and look in the blacksmith shop, you hear the sound. You've seen before my stockyard, which has got 30 or 40 sheep in it. Well, now it has sheep, and there are. Who would think that people would go out and record dozens of files of sheep? Well, there they are on Freesound, and I picked out a file of sheep buying, and so you can hear the sheep. And then finally, the hardest one to find And actually, I think the recording file is called a rock fall, but it just sounds like falling rocks. Well, sounds like coal coming out of a coaling tower. And so my coaling tower now, you can push the button and you hear the coal tumbling out of the coaling tower.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Jeff. Great find, great interaction with everybody. Next up, live from Dallas, Texas, Dan Rousseau. Phil, if you could spot Dan. Dan's got a presentation on weathering wood. Dan has been on the show before, and welcome back. And he also did a modeling lifestyle several years ago that I participated in, and I believe Al Judy did as well. So we got a historic basis there. But welcome to the show. And Phil, if you could pop up his PowerPoint, that'd be wonderful.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm really kind of bringing a segment of work that I shared at Harrisburg. As many of you know that attend the Harrisburg show, Tom and I just come and show up and use all of our time to build things, right? That's kind of our gig. We're in the maker spaces, and we like sharing tips and tricks and techniques of how we do things with other modelers and just helping people get more out of their modeling. I really started this back in Texas years ago as a way to encourage modelers with kits. You know, I do more kit building than I do scratch building. That's where Tom and I probably differ a little bit. Tom's a great scratch builder. And now that I'm retired, I probably am going to have some more time on my hands, hopefully, to do some scratch building. But really, my goal was to get people to open the box on the kits, frankly. I mean, many of us have kit walls, right? You know, we could start our own hobby shops. And so it was a desire of mine to get modelers to take the darn things off the shelf and open the box and get busy. So this technique is one, I described this to Calvin Witt at Harrisburg. I said, I'm a lazy model railroader is what it boils down to. And so being a lazy model railroader, I search for ways that I can do things quickly. And I think our mentor that we talk about a lot of times on this show and, you know, at Harrisburg, Al Judy, certainly is the type of modeler that, you know, learn how to do things quickly. He did that when he had his hobby shop. He's done it doing commercial work. He's done it, you know, in his own modeling. And I think it's critically important to learn how can you shortcut things and save time so that you can focus on the things you want to focus on. For me, it's building structures. I love building structures. So we'll go to the next slide. The focus of this segment is on really modeling weathered wood structures. And I wanted to give everybody a sense that, you know, we're not talking about expensive stuff here. I use the builders and scale. I also use, you know, hunter line stains, things like that. If alcohol and India ink is your gig and you want to mix up, you know, your own stains in various colors, knock yourself out. There's not any one way to do this. So those are the stains that I tend to use, and the one that you see in the middle is a critical one for me. It's their silverwood stain. And you'll be seeing how I do this here in the next slide. The other thing I use for my paints is pure, cheap craft paint. You can get this anywhere. You can get it at Hobby Lobby, you can get it at Walmart, you know, almost anywhere. You know, if you're paying a lot of money for this stuff, you know, frankly, you're paying too much. These things you can find on sale for, you know, usually under $1 a bottle. And the stains are cost a little bit more, certainly, but I order them directly off of Builders and Scales website. So we can go to the next slide. In terms of tools, these are the brushes I use. I found these brushes a number of years ago, and if you can't find a brush like this at your local artist supply store, or at Hobby Lobby, or one of those places, frankly, just take some brushes that you've used for years that are beat to death. The key is you'll notice in those brush tips a lot of space, a lot of irregularity, fraying, all of that kind of stuff. This is the stuff that works to your advantage in this technique. So, you want to find brushes that either right out of the box look like this, or ones that you've used for a number of years, or just take some and start chewing up your brushes a little bit to make them look like this. So let's go to the next slide. So the first tech thing I do is I take that silver wood stain on my wood and I brush it on the wood and I might put a layer or two of the silver wood stain on the straight on the wood. And a lot of guys will worry about whether it's going to warp or things like that. I don't worry about it with the paint. When the paint hits this laser cut wood, it's going to warp. That's what interior bracing's for, right? And things like that. So fundamentally, I don't really worry about it. A lot of times, once it dries, it kind of tends to come back fairly level anyway. So start out with a silver wood stain. You can see that it kind of gives you that very sort of chalky, silverish look to the wood. And that's my starting point. You can also add other stain colors to this. If you prefer a different, base color, no problem. Go to the next slide. So this is when I start taking the color I've chosen. In this case, it was a white, and I start dry brushing this in the direction of the grain. And you'll notice I put the pounce wheel to these wall sections, so that when the stain hit it the first time, you're starting to get nail hole relief and stuff like that, detail. And then I'll put the dry brushing going with the grain, um, going over this, couple of times. And then, then you can go to the next slide. I'll start to go in and stipple paint some of the white in there to add texture up on top of what I've already dry brushed. You'll notice that the trim was done the same way. So to give the effect that, everything is sort of at the same level of weathering. And we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And then finally, I'll even go back over this with some of the stain. And I can use various stains at this point. But what that does is it kind of gives you some of the depth in that wood that's been weathered. The stain gets in there around where you've painted and things like that. So it just adds another sort of dimension, if you will, to the weathered wood that you're doing. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Now, this is an example of really using the technique with just the stains and more so than adding any paint. This was a shotgun house structure that I built and used multiple passes of stain over the wood to really kind of create that old weather beaten shack sort of look, almost like a sharecropper's, house or something like that, with the tin, with a rusted tin roof and things like that. So we can show the next slide. You can kind of see some of it up close. It's a very easy technique to use, and the key to it really is working it up in layers. It's starting with that stain or stains, putting your paint to it in a dry brush way, then stipple painting the paint on top of it, and then going back over it with stain. You could also use chalks if chalks are your thing. Um, you could even take some of the paint and use, thin it, ultra thin, and use that for washes. So, like I say, I found this to be a very effective technique that's easy to do in a few steps. So, any questions, or I'll open it up.
Yeah, hi Dan. This is Greg. I've used the silver wood and the brown wood, and I like them both along with my other stains. What was the third one you had, and how does that compare to the brown wood?
The dead wood kind of gives you something in between the two. Okay.
Okay.
I'll use of their stains. I use also they have one that's kind of a charcoal. They also have one that is a yellow wood. I don't use the yellow wood that much. I didn't find that I really liked, kind of the effect I got with the yellow wood. I've used it on a couple of occasions, but really, the same thing. Tom and I love, one of the first things that both Tom and I do when we get to Harrisburg is buy up as many of the Hunter line stains as we can. And which is probably why everybody at the show goes, what happened to all the stain? But really, the Hunter line makes some great stuff too. I mean, they've got a driftwood stain. They've got some other ones that you can use. Like I said, if you want to mix your own, you can certainly go that route.
Well, I've got a whole drawer full of Hunter and some of the best, but I got to admit, I use the silverwood a lot because it almost seems unique.
Where are you guys buying the silverwood? Where are you getting that stuff?
So I'm just going to Builders and Scales website is where I'm getting that.
Okay.
I just go direct. It's been the most consistent place I can find it. And you can get it in the 4 or 8 ounce bottles from them. So that's where I go.
Okay.
Hey, Dan, I may have missed it, but when you're doing the stain on stain, is that 2 different stains or is it just
sometimes, Kevin,
stain
that's a great question. Sometimes I'll go over that wood multiple times with the same stain, just adding layers to it. In fact, that's how I started the shotgun house. And then other times I'll vary the stain. I might go to the brown wood stain. I might add some charcoal stain in there or things like that. In fact, when I finished up on that shotgun house, I added some of the charcoal, on top of what I'd done as a final pass, which really kind of picked up some of that grain of the wood and it defined it a little bit more in depth.
Or are the multi-layers more of a quasi dry brush? I mean, you're not flooding it every time, or that would kind of just make everything the same, right?
Right.
Sort of.
Yeah, I mean the stain, as far as the stains go, that's more of a full brush. But if it's the paint, I'm doing the dry brushing and the stipple painting, with the paint itself. And the great thing about the technique is you can lay off or add, right? If the structure is just mildly weather beaten, right, you can go that route. If it's something that's been around and they haven't, like I did a yard office for Brady McGuire, who's since passed. He passed away last year. But we operate his Pennsylvania Railroad O-scale 2-rail layout every Thursday night. And he had this yard office kit. And so I built it for him. And what was interesting about it was I told him I'm going to take this and make it look like, you know, they haven't had any money in the budget for 30 or 40 years to paint this structure. And finally, somebody scrounged some money up. And so the structure is 3/4 of the structure, or actually maybe even more of it, is weather beaten like that shotgun house. And you finally got on one corner of one side is a painter out there starting to repaint, the structure. So just to create that contrast and that scene.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent presentation, Dan.
Thank you. Glad to share.
Great techniques. And as our founder, Jim Kello, is fond of saying, if you didn't learn something tonight with all these presentations, you weren't listening. Fantastic show and great presentations. And appreciate going all the way to the beginning, our scholarship awardees, new word I learned today from Phil, winners. It's great to see them in person, and we look forward to interviewing them as the month goes on. So that basically concludes our show. We have our traditional closing with Father Ron, and then we have our caboose. So Father Ron, you're on.
Master maker of the universe. Our scale models imitate your creative spirit, and we learn the genius of your handiwork. Teach us to appreciate all you have made. Amen.
Thank you, Father Ron. And now our caboose. Well, thank you again, all the presenters. Thank you for participating this evening. And I thought it was a great show. Hope you did too. Tell your friends about it. We want to grow the show, and have a good evening.
Thanks, guys.